town's exposure is not only will the town be exposed to the Invenergy problem, but the town is vulnerable on the $2.8 million it is currently collecting from Ocean State Power. These are dollars that are in effect. This is a tax agreement that is signed. What we are guaranteed, because we have that tax agreement with Ocean State Power, is that we will get that $2.8 million a year until the agreement is up. But when that agreement is up, we're exposed, once again, to those same three arguments. So what have we proposed? Next slide, please. We've proposed changes to 44.330. 44.330 is a special law only available to Burrillville that allows Burrillville to set the taxes on the power plants in the town, which is great. I'm really pleased that we have that law. We've used that law with Ocean State Power twice already, with 2 tax agreements. The problem with it is that it doesn't deal with these issues that I've just discussed. So we have proposed, next slide, that there be an amendment to that law. And we're hoping that in January this amendment will get introduced. I'm not a politician, I'm a lawyer. I don't know whether there's any hope of getting this passed, but if you see the language that's in red, that's language that I drafted that would not only make it clear that the power generators in the town of Burrillville are taxable, but that they would be 100% taxable. Now, we would not be able to overcome the pollution control exemption, that's true. But this would take care of any problem from that recent Supreme Court case and the manufacturer's exemption. That risk would be eliminated for anything that was done with Invenergy, and it would be eliminated for the existing agreement that would expire for Ocean State Power. Next slide. This is the Ocean State Power litigation that I handled with Glenn and with Solicitor Nicowishin. They claimed over a 5-year period of time, and yes, we litigated this case for 5 solid years, almost $10 million in tax reimbursement that the town would have had to write a check for. That would have included retroactive interest at 12%. If any of you are getting 12% on your investments, please tell me where, because I'd like to put a few dollars in there. But you can get it if you sue someone. Next slide. They sued us in the Rhode Island Superior Court multiple times. They sued us in the Rhode Island Supreme Court. They sued us in the U.S. Federal District Court. And they sued us in the Federal First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston. They were relentless, and so were we. These cases cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal and expert fees, but we successfully defended them. As most of you know, instead of $10 million, we gave them zero. Zero. Next slide. Now, if future legislation is filed that could negatively impact the taxability of this type of facility, which is possible, you never know, they've got political power, they've got the governor. Who knows what else they've got in terms of political influence. They could try to get something that would say you just can't tax it. They would oppose our proposed legislation that would make it clear you can tax it. Having a tax agreement eliminates that. It's a contract. The contract is enforceable for the term of the contract, which is why I love the fact that the contract is for 20 years. It means you don't have any of these risks for 20 years. A new law could be passed that would affect power plants. It would not apply for 20 years. The Constitution prohibits ex post facto. You cannot apply it to an existing contract. Now, these are some points. Glenn has brought them up, and Glenn, if you want to jump in at any time, these are financing and generating facility slides. Tax agreements are not necessary to obtain financing. Some people have said if we turn them down and they don't have a tax agreement, they won't be able to get financing. That is not true. As we pointed out here, Oxford got the financing, and they're moving forward. They're on site, and they're building like crazy. Two of them in New Hampshire were built and financed without a tax agreement. It's not necessary. It is the usual practice, no question about it, but it's not necessary to get financing. Next slide. Invenergy is currently moving forward with it and has spent probably $25 million on it, even though it has no agreement. And the New Hampshire ones are already built without an agreement, fully financed. Now, the way you determine whether or not you've got the ability to finance one of these is you look at how much revenue they're going to be getting. The primary source of revenue is from ISO New England on their capacity payments, which they get when they bid in and they get an award. Invenergy has an award for Unit 1. They're hoping to get an award in February for Unit 2. That's where they're going to get their dollars. That's what they're concerned about. Do they want a tax agreement? Yes. Is it necessary in order for them to do this? Absolutely not. They are going to get a ton of money. Not only that are they going to get a ton of money from ISO New England, the third bullet point, brand new rule with ISO New England. It's locked for 7 years. Never used to be. Now it is. Guaranteed stream of revenue based on the award at the auction for 7 solid years. Intentionally done by ISO New England to make the financing of a power plant easier. Next slide. Now, the second agreement that we'd like to discuss is the proposed property value guarantee agreement, or the PVGA. Right. Next slide. A property owner who chooses to participate will receive $1,500 up front for signing. I want to emphasize one thing at the front end. The town negotiated this form of agreement for any of you who are within the zone of impact to be able to use the agreement if you choose to do so. If you choose not to do so, you have at least 2 options. Option 1 is you could exercise an opt-out agreement that we've also negotiated on your behalf. Under the opt-out agreement, you would get a $5,000 payment, and you would not be able to force them to buy your property out if you choose to do so. Your second option is to do nothing at all. You don't have to do anything. None of these are required. These are just options. And your third option is to go to Invenergy and say, we want some changes. We don't like the way this is written. We're not prepared to sign that form. Here's what we'll do. You could do it on your own. You could hire a lawyer to do that. But we've negotiated what we think is a pretty good deal. But if you don't like it, you don't have to take it. But the way it works, the form that we've negotiated, is there's an appraisal that gets done to set what's known as the base value. That's key. The base value is determined by the appraisal. The appraisal must be based on the value as if there was no power plant planned or built. The appraiser has to make that assumption in doing this. The next slide. If the property sells for less than the appraised value, Invenergy has to pay the difference. Now, you do have to list the property for 165 days and try to sell it in good faith. But if you cannot sell it after 165 days and you have no offers from anybody, they have to buy the property at base value. Next slide. There are 117 properties that have been identified as eligible, and that list is available at Town Hall for anybody to see. Next slide. PVGA will be binding on Invenergy, but property owners have the choices that we discussed. You can enter into it as written. You can decline the proposal and negotiate individually with them. Next slide. The town cannot force the EFSB to make compliance with the PVGA a condition of the license. However, Invenergy has agreed in writing that they will support the town's request to make compliance with the property value guarantee agreement and the decommissioning agreement that we're going to discuss. Specific license conditions. What does that mean? A license condition is a very heavy handle. The EFSB has extraordinary powers under their act, both during construction and after construction, during operation. They monitor compliance with their license. If they determine that a facility is not in compliance with their license, they can fine that facility, they can suspend their license, or they could pull the license. The way Invenergy gets money is through these capacity payments. What does that mean? That means that they're available to service the energy needs of the state and the region. If their license is suspended, even for a day, they no longer are available to serve the needs, and under what's known as the pay-for-performance rules established by ISO New England, they would not get their capacity payments. That's their revenue stream. That's their golden cow, okay? The EFSB can take that away from them if they don't honor their obligations under the PVGA or under the decommissioning agreement. Invenergy is also bound for 7 years to the PVGA after construction starts. So if construction starts, if it's permitted in 3 years, it would go for 10 years from now. But you've got 7 years to do whatever you want to do under that agreement. Next slide. Other communities, are there others that have negotiated something like this? There are a few. Mr. Walker was involved in most of them, but Medway and Franklin and Bellingham, which as you know are basically together in their power plant, have one. But we're unaware of any others that have been negotiated in New England. But we insisted on it. The council insisted on it. The manager insisted on it. Everyone insisted that something be done to try to help the people who were adversely affected by this plan. So this is what we're proposing. If you choose to take it, you can. If not, you can walk away from it or take the $5,000. Next slide. This is the opt-out. Next slide. As I said, any eligible property owner that wants to opt out can do so and will be paid $5,000. The downside is that you no longer have the right to force them to buy you out. So it's a choice you can make. You do the opt-out, get $5,000. Do the PVGA, you get $1,500, and a guaranteed buyout if you can't sell. You can do nothing at all, or you can negotiate your own arrangement. Next slide. This is the decommissioning agreement. I've got to tell you, based on my experience, as I mentioned earlier, I spent 5 years with the largest electric company in the United States. While I was there, they had under various stages of simultaneous planning or actual construction, 16 nuclear power units, 16 of them in southeastern United States. What happened with some of those is that after investing literally over $1 billion, they had to pull out. There was a monstrosity in the town where they had done this, and there was no decommissioning agreement in place. The town had not thought far enough in advance to commit the company to agree to what would happen if all of a sudden they had a hulking nothing sitting in their town. So one of the first things I said when I got on board with this is we've got to get a decommissioning agreement. And we have a decommissioning agreement. Next slide. Decommissioning will provide for either removal or reuse of the facility at the end of the power plant's operating life. The agreement requires them to restore the site to its original state unless the town and the company both agree otherwise. A reuse will not occur unless the town agrees. If the town does not agree, it must be restored to its original state. Next slide. Let me explain how it gets done. Invenergy pays all decommissioning costs. Invenergy has to provide financial assurances to the town in terms of either a bond, a letter of credit, or an escrow account to cover the costs. Now, what do they have to provide? There is a complicated mechanism that requires us on an annual basis to review the status of the facility, to bring experts in at Invenergy's expense, and to have those experts determine how much decommissioning would cost. Once that cost estimate is made, Invenergy has to post financial security of 125% of that amount. 125. Not 100% of that amount, 125%. And Invenergy is not the one backing it. It'll be a financial institution that is posting the bond or the letter of credit or the escrow account. It is well secured. It is also binding on any future owner or developer in the event they should transfer the property. They must also do the same. Next slide. As I said, the decommissioning costs are evaluated and updated periodically. The assurances are adjusted accordingly. The agreement is binding on future owners or developers. And the final one, again, they've agreed that compliance by Invenergy with the obligations of the decommissioning agreement would be a condition of any EFSB permit. If they violate it in any way, if they are late in doing one of their assessments, if they are late in renewing their bond or their letter of credit, we immediately go to the EFSB and ask the EFSB to suspend or pull their permit, which withdraws their lifeblood, their revenue from ISO to New England. They would have no revenue. Next slide. I'm at the end of my presentation. I would thank you very, very much for respectfully listening to what I have to say. I understand that some of you may well disagree with what I've got to say. I respect that. We'll listen carefully to that. And, Mr. President,